I really do try to be a man of my words. When I say I'm looking for certain engines to take apart on this channel, especially ones I see mentioned in the comments, I do try to go find these engines. And it's usually the case, not always, that some of the engines that are suggested over and over again are simply hard to find. And usually, not always, those hard to find engines are expensive. And usually, not always, they're expensive because there's more than one buyer. And always, when there's more than one buyer, I'm the little guy. I don't have the buying power of these big buying companies, core buyers, these rebuilders. I'm one guy with a shop that takes cars apart and engines apart in the back. So for me to be first in line on one of these expensive cores is rare. But this week, right place, right time, and it's been a long time Cummins. Sorry guys. Got a Powerstroke on the channel, and not just any Powerstroke, the worst one, I think. A 6.4, the one with two of those Bombay blasters, turbochargers on the top of it. And this core, I know very little about. And I actually know very little about 6.4s in general, but I do sell them. I actually have a very good running studded and deleted 6.4 if you need one. But now I have a core, so I'll have plenty of 6.4 parts to sell. And for those that are wondering, these cores are well over $1,000. That's expensive for a blown engine that may have no good parts. The 6.4 Powerstroke came out in the 2008 Super Duties, the F250s and larger, and they ran these for 3 amazing years till 2010 when they finally had enough and came out with the 6.7. And now, I'm not really trying to say that these are terrible engines, but if you listed every major manufacturer's diesel engine, the 5.9 Cummins, the 6.7 Cummins, all of the Duramaxes, even the 6.5 turbo diesel, and then you put all the Powerstrokes in there and you went from top to bottom and you just asked everybody where the top was and where the bottom was, this might be towards the bottom. That's just the general consensus. That doesn't mean that these won't last and can't last, because I see plenty of these with lots and lots of miles on them. It also doesn't mean that they don't run good, because I've driven these trucks and they do run good. It just means that they happen to break sometimes. And I've heard of all kinds of issues, lifter and cam problems, broken pistons. I've seen videos of them shooting fire out of the back of them, which is kind of cool, but not if you're a pedestrian, really. Either way, these engines get a really bad rap. And I don't know if this is going to be a catastrophic failure, because this engine does turn over, doesn't really feel that great, so we might see some issues inside. Hopefully the expensive parts made it. The high pressure fuel pump, the turbos are, I have no idea what this is worth. I just know that the pump is worth a bunch of money and the front cover is worth a bunch of money. And if those two parts are good and the rest of it's junk, I will have broken even on the engine, which means that hopefully I make a little bit on the video. As you can see, a lot of the parts on this engine are loosely reassembled, and there's a lot of missing parts on this engine. This is going to be a lot easier than a fully dressed 6.4. I'm going to try to explain what's going on here. This is a compound turbo setup. Your exhaust gases come out of the cylinder heads into the large exhaust housing. They go from this housing, from the outlet of this housing, into the inlet of this much smaller exhaust housing, which spools this turbo first, which then crams air into the inlet of this turbo, which is much bigger. It has a variable geometry actuator here, and this moves some vanes in here. I don't know how far apart I'll take these turbos, we'll see. And then it crams all of that air into the engine. Actually, it goes into the intercooler and a bunch of piping. But regardless, that's the really bad explanation of how all of this works. Now, to get all of this off, I think it all comes off in one piece. At least that's how we are going to remove it. It's got a couple of 15mm bolts on these pedestal stands, and there's some stuff over here. I also have to remove my free ratchet straps that are currently holding this upright. God, I hope it doesn't tip over. Well, first we need to get this strap out of the way. I've got this terrible knife I found in a car that works amazing. It's the little things. Okay, let's see how stable this is. Yeah, it's good. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is remove this bracket from the driver's side or left valve cover. Oh, so this might just come off. Yeah. Next, I'm going to remove the two 15mm pedestal bolts. They're like these clamps, really. And it looks like the bolts are already missing out of here, so this might just fall apart. Well, let's try this one. Nope, apparently those are tight. So let's get this out of there. See if we can do some damage this way. We're just gonna get the big breaker bar. It's gonna be fine. So those are tight. Yeah, that wasn't too bad. Now we can get them out with this. I think it's about time for a larger hose and a better impact. Let's try it with old blue here. Well, it's kind of moving. Let's get something just a little bit bigger. Let's try this. It's not really a good place to... Oh, sure there is. Okay, it's moving a little bit. Yeah, just takes the right tools. Now I wonder if this is heavy. Oh yeah, yep, that's heavy. Let's see if we can get these two separated. I'm gonna go with probably not. Nope, that's a unit. Well, we can still check it out anyway. So, here's the one turbo. It spins-ish. It spins all right. Not a lot of shaft play. In fact, no shaft play. Actually spins pretty nice. Must have been sitting for a little bit. And then there's the other turbo. That one actually looks bigger, at least on the compressor side. That one spins nice. Not a lot of shaft play. Feels pretty normal. Oh, that's coming out. Get rid of that. It's definitely been wet. There's signs of moisture inside. I bet this core sat outside for a little bit. I don't think it sat outside long enough to ruin anything. And I also don't know if any of this is worth money. If any of this is worth money, it's probably this actuator. Now, for some of you that are a little unfamiliar with these engines, that doesn't have two oil filters. This is fuel and this is oil. So we're going to take the fuel filter housing off with this line here that feeds the high pressure pump. And I don't think there's going to be much to see. Hey, let's see what this oil filter looks like. Come on, why is you so tight? I'm fine. Oh. Sparkles. So let's take a look at this thing. Well, there's a little bit of forbidden glitter in there. Yeah, it's not good. It's not packed in here, but I mean, it's here. The next thing we're going to do is remove these fuel feed lines from the pump, and then we're going to get this plate out of the way. Oh, turns out I need to take all the bolts out. Much easier. So I couldn't really tell how it was bolted on. I rubbed the outside of this. That's just round. Then, yeah, it's a 8mm Allen. We're just gonna use this, and oh, that sounds terrible. Push all this oil out of here. You know what? We might... No, we're just going to do it this way. Or there's another one in this down here. And it looks like the connectors are zip tied on. Really strong zip ties. So that's... that just broke really bad. It's fine. Let's see, does this one break? Yep. Now, I should be pretty careful not to round anything. Well, the pump should just come right out, I think. Yep, sure does. This gives us a little peek at the cam and 4 of the lifters. I don't see anything major or horrific yet, but again, this is just a small part of it. Next, we're going to remove the passenger side or right valve cover. Or is it a rocker cover because it's a diesel? I don't know. That's not the right size. I think this is the first time I've ever used a 12 millimeter on a Ford. That wasn't a Mazda. Gotcha. So at first glance, everything looks just dirty, nothing awful, but then the very next glance, yeah. That is not supposed to be just hanging out down there. It's supposed to be pressing on those 2 valves. It's laying down on the job here. So I wonder why that came off. And there's some sparkles and there's some plastic jammed in the oil return, which I would imagine came from the injector harness because that comes apart. You know, if they just put it in, I don't know, metal, that wouldn't happen. I wonder if that clogs the pickup and creates issues. Now for the left or driver side. There we go. Oh, we got issues on this side too. So if you look at those plastic retainers, I have no idea what they're actually called. For the rockers, that one's gone because it's right there. So I don't know if that's an unrelated issue or if that's a common problem. Either way, it's not supposed to happen. Next, I'm going to remove the intake manifold. So now I'm fighting with this oil return. Stuck on this. There we go. Perfect. In my head, I think that's all the bolts, but I have a suspicion that that's not going to do it. Oh, there's one right there. We were close. Oh, that's the sound of loose. That sounds bad. I'm going to get this out of the way if I can. Might need to pry this out of the fitting here. Well, it's almost impossible to see the valves through these ports. It just looks like the dark abyss of carbon and oil. Don't do that, flashlight. So I can tell this has been sitting outside because that port is filled with water and that one isn't. And this is also the same cylinder that knocked off one of those rocker, oh, there's a name for it, whatever that's called. Now we're going to try to clear out the valley. We're going to take this turbo mount off. And that's not going to happen with this. Nope. Let's get something a little bigger. Is there a bolt in the middle here? There is a bolt in the middle. Wouldn't you know it? Get it cleaned out here. Yeah, there's a bolt in there. Pretty rusty too. Whoever that is. There we go. Well, that's a weighty piece. Now we'll get the oil filter housing and manifold off. The other impact is so much stronger. Well, let's see if this will come off. Oh, yes. Okay, so there's some engine fluid in this pit of despair. I don't know what's supposed to be in here, but I can tell you what's in there. It's like oil, but it's not oil. Now we're going to remove this line. Cool, makes a stinky mess. Now it's time to start dismantling the driver's side or left cylinder head. We're going to start with the fuel rail. We're going to take these lines off the injectors, and then we'll get the fuel rail out. Next, we're going to start disconnecting the injectors. Nope. Now let's start on the injector harness. It's literally falling apart completely. I guess this is a pretty common problem. Okay, now a couple tens and the rail should come out. And this is in a grommet in the head right here. One rail. Next, I'm going to remove the injector hold-down brackets. I'm sure there's a more technical term for those. Now I left these lines kind of loosely on here so that I have something to, well, that was easy. I thought those were going to be a lot worse. They just come out? What kind of land am I living in? It's like a fairy tale. They just boop right out. Okay, now we have definitely got some debris from the harness in here. It's fine. Don't forget we have some plastic from one of these rocker assemblies. And that's the next thing to come apart. We're going to remove these. Oh, we can start cracking these bolts loose. So all the push rods look pretty good. The ends are all shiny and mirror finish, not that machined look when there's an oiling issue and they don't rotate. Now we can remove this aluminum rocker cover. Is that the right word? Okay, so that isn't quite as easily removed as I anticipated because I still have a bolt left. Let's give it some taps with this. Okay, that's all it took. Oh, that rocker stand just comes right out. Now, it looks like we're ready to pull the head. First thing I'm going to do is take these 10mm bolts off the top. All right, these aren't very tight. Now, let's get this head off. Oh boy, these are tight. Really, really tight. It's fine. It was almost not fine there. Okay, we're gonna have to take a different approach here. Let's go down since the other side is strapped in still. Wow. Did Mercedes work on this? You know what? We're going to get the torque reducer out of here. See if that helps. Oh boy. Folks, these are tight. All right, so I've got my big 3/4 inch breaker bar with an adapter, so that'll kill any chance I have of removing these. And we're going to keep going. Much better. Boy, I don't know if I could have done all of these with that 1/2-inch drive. I don't know if this is going to do it, but we're going to try. Okay, this one needs a little extra. Look at those bolts. Okay, so now the head should just come right off, and it is iron, so it's going to be heavy. Let me get my feet out of the way here. Don't really know what to grab it by, but we're just going to... Oh, it'll be fine. Yep, that is heavy. Well, I don't see anything jumping out at me yet. There's a little bit of rust. It's clear this thing sat outside for a little bit. I don't see any signs that any of these made contact with the cylinder head, which is good. Usually you'll see an imprint of the valves or the surface of the cylinder head, but I don't see that at all. There's just some mystery oil. It's oil and water. And the head gasket doesn't look too bad. I don't see any areas of damage, really. That all looks okay. The cylinder head tells the exact same story. There's definitely been signs of water and moisture sitting in this engine. It probably sat outside, but I don't see any major damage. Nothing's melted like the Duramax we took apart. I do want to mention that I weighed this head just to see what it weighs, and it is 82 pounds with no valve train, just valves, springs, and the head casting. It's pretty heavy. Now we will resume continuing on the other side of the engine, the right or passenger side cylinder head. Now this rail has a pressure sensor in it. I'm sure this connector is just going to blast apart when I take it off, if I can get it off. Uh-huh. Yep, it's about like that. Okay. It's supposed to just slide over the rail, but it's broke. Okay. There's the other rail. Now for the injectors. Stubborn. What the? Okay, all the injectors are out. Now, if you remember when I pulled the valve cover off of this head, this bridge, which has a lot of damage and wear on it, oh, that's not supposed to happen. Well, the push rod looks okay. So what happened here? Let's just kind of put that over there. So that pushes on these two valves here. All of the other ones seem to be in the right spot. It's just that one. Now let's crack these rockers loose. Well, all the push rods look okay. All have the same finish on the ends. I suppose we can remove this bridge. Before I went too much further, I wanted to talk about these bridges, which I think that's what these are called. So this bridge on the right, this one right here, is the one that was knocked off. And as you can see where the rocker pushes on it, there is quite a bit of wear. These two also have wear. They're from the same cylinder head. This one's not so bad. That one's pretty deep, but not as bad as this one. But they're all kind of worn on this bank. The other bank wasn't really like that. All right, let's get this other piece off. There we are. So this might be a little more fun, less fun. Now I don't have anything holding this engine still. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. First things first, let's get these top bolts out. Let's get these super tight bolts out. And no, I'm not being sarcastic. Please don't tip over. All right, I don't know if I'm ready for this. Oh, I'm not ready for this. Not even close. Why don't they put a handle on these? Oh, come on, head gasket. Don't slice me. Come on. Well, that's kind of interesting. But first, so this piston is suspiciously clean. And there's, that's just carbon. They're all connected. Yep, all connecting rods, so that's good. Well, at first glance, it didn't look too bad, but it's that second glance that always gets you. So that piston is suspiciously clean compared to the others, and then when you take a peek at those cylinder walls, yikes. That sat wet for a long time. But that's not even the bad part, because if you look in here, there's little bitty chunks of aluminum. We got some mystery metal because I have no idea where that came from. It almost looks like piston metal, but the pistons all look to be intact, at least enough to where they're not missing giant hunks. Plus, how would they escape the rings? That doesn't make any sense. So I bet we're going to find where that metal came from. The cylinder head looks equally dirty and disgusting, but I don't see any major signs of damage. Nothing's bent. It doesn't look like anything made contact with anything else. But I'd like you to pay attention to the finish on that head surface. It looks machined. But then, back to the block surface, it looks like someone took a Scotch pad to it. But I don't know if that's a factory finish or not. It's hard to say. Here's the larger section of mystery metal that I found. It almost looks like part of a piston, but it's I don't think it is. I don't know. What is this? It's round. We'll find out. Next, we're going to start pulling the lifters out. Okay, we're going to start at the front. Uh-oh. That one doesn't come out. Something's wrong here. Oh, we got it out. Why did that fight it? Oh. I know why it's a core now. Okay. So the lifters started coming out pretty good. And then we got to this one. That's a failed roller. Which, well, I would expect that we're going to find some cam damage as well. And that one was very tough to get out of the bore, at least compared to the others. All of the other lifters seem to be in pretty good shape. Now for the other side. The lifters on this bank all look pretty decent. Now for the water pump. plastic impeller. What? Huh. Well, that's weird. Maybe this has been replaced because, well, I'll show you in a second. But the water pump itself, it looks pretty decent. So normally this part of whatever engine block or housing, timing cover, it should look pretty smooth, I would think. Again, this is the first 6.4 I've torn down, but this looks like something has been grinding against it. It's rough, textured, it's not even. Is this a common problem, or is this just how they look? Now we're going to see if we can remove this harmonic balancer. Wow, that was a lot easier than I anticipated. So we're going to continue zipping bolts out of this, and it's tough to see what size these bolts are because everything is so filthy. But we're going to try and see how many 10 millimeters we have. I'm just going to start taking all the bolts out. No 10 is safe. I think I'm running out of bolts. I don't see any more. Hold on. Okay, let's see if we got all the bolts out. It seems like I might have missed some. Okay, I found one more bolt. Big bolt. Oh, that did it. But I've never had this happen before. Blue, where are you? We are leaking. Okay, so I don't know. Oh, I see. I gotta push this seal off. No problem. We can make that happen. So that's the seal that needs to come out. Okay, now this should just come right off, right? Yeah, came right off. That is a massive shaft. Crankshaft. It's crankshaft. Now, that's what I'm talking about. Wow. Pretty cool. Very messy. We knew that was going to happen. So here's what the back side of the timing cover looks like. It's got an oil pump built in, which I probably pulled a bunch of bolts out that I didn't need to. But I didn't know. Oh, look at that. Mini Exxon Valdez. I'm actually not going to take this apart because this is a sellable part. If I take it apart, the magic smoke comes out. But I am going to put this in the parts wash. So try to remember how dirty this was. I don't think you have to try very hard. Now I'm going to focus my attention on the back of this engine. We're going to remove this rear cover. Haha, with the air impact. Is that it, really? No, there's got to be more than that. I mean, there doesn't, but there should be. Let's give it a little tap here. Yeah, that's it. What I mean by that is there might be another bolt over here. Let's just hammer on it. Blue's getting a workout today. Okay, there is the rear cover. Next, we're going to remove this flywheel adapter, and I'm going to use my harmonic balancer puller. I have no idea if this is actually going to work or not. Oh, sweet. That was pretty anticlimactic. Here's the remain seal. Now I have access to these bolts. I don't know how hard it is to get this end off, but we're going to find out. Okay, so then this piece just, you know, hit it with a hammer. That's not going to do anything. Let's try blue. That's not going to do anything. Let's try this. Yes! All right, now I need to turn this engine over just enough to get these two bolts out. I'm actually going to get this bolt out and then turn it over. Does not turn over so great. Probably the rust in the cylinders. Okay, let's see if we can get this cam out. I have no idea if there's more to it or... Oh, no, that's it. Nice and gentle. Come on. You've come this far. Well, the cam looks okay until you get to this lobe right here. And as you can see, that damaged lifter really did a number, like a number 2. Yes, it did a number 2 on the cam. Well, I've gone as far as I can go. Now I need to put the block on its tail so I can pull the rotating assembly out. However, due to past experiences, I'm going to see if this is drained. I just got to do it. Come on, baby. That's safe. Plus, I need to change the pallet out. That one is soiled. See if she's actually drained. Sounds drained. Sounds hollow, so that's why I say sounds drained. Ha! That is not a small amount. Hopefully I got enough room in that drain pan. Sure I do. Oof, that's a lot of oil. That would have been a giant mess, and it is still flowing. Well, I don't know what year it is, but it's finally done draining for the most part. So I'm going to lower this down, and then I'm going to use the forklift to pick the front of the block up and set it on its tail. That's the plan anyway. Whoa, nearly. Okay, so the idea is to keep all of my digits. That was totally perfect. Just perfect. Let's zip some bolts out of this pan. I guess I did. And there's the pan, which has, that's an interesting type of fluid. There's the pickup, windage tray, upper pan, you want to call it that? I would call it that. Pickup looks clean. So it's pretty hard to see what's in the pan here. It just looks like the black abyss, but you can kind of see some silvery streaks, especially like right there. There wasn't that much metal that came out when I drained the oil, but there's a lot in the pan here. Fine metal. That's a piece of plastic. No large identifiable pieces though. Now we're going to remove this. This is an upper pan windage tray. I should probably take this long extension off of here, but it's fun. Well, that was easy. Nice and clean. Now I'm going to try to rotate the crank over so we can start getting the rods and pistons out, starting at the front. You always want to start at the front. It's just cleaner that way. It looks like it's got some paint markings on it, but I don't know if this has been a part before. I'm going to take this one loose, and then we're going to use the crank to drive the rods and pistons up to the top of the bore. It'll make it a little easy for me. So I got this one to the top of the bore. Oh, there's some bearings in here. Let's give this another shot, shall we? Yeah, that wasn't too bad. Now this side has a lot of rust in the bore, so I'm not really thinking we're gonna get too far with it, but I am gonna turn the crank a little further and try to get it as far up the bore as I can. I don't know how far we'll be able to go. Oh, no, wrong way. Hey, I don't want that. It's crowning. First ring's out. There we go. Okay, on to the next two. All right, now we're going to rotate the crank, try to drive the rods and pistons to the top of the bore. And this is actually focused on the cylinder that had the rocker or lifter damage. So we'll see what this looks like when this comes out. Will it be where the mystery metal came from? All right, now let's turn this crank over, push these up to the top. And then there were two. Oh yeah, we're coming. Out, that's what I meant. Oh, now she is. We're all out. Well, the bearings aren't nearly as bad as I expected. I guess that filter caught a lot of that metal. Of course, there is some wear, like there has been metal run through it, but it's not as bad as I expected with the amount of metal missing from that lifter. And the rods and pistons look pretty good as well. There's a couple pistons here that has some skirt wear, but that mystery metal did not come from a piston. I guess that's why they call it a mystery. You have no idea where it came from. They are pretty dirty, and what's odd is that some of these pistons are actually a lot cleaner than others. You think that has to do with the injectors? I don't know these engines well enough. Now, normally I would hit these bolts with my impact, but I'm going to break them loose with the breaker bar because A, you guys like the sound, B, you guys like the sound, and C, I want to see how tight they are. Okay, they're not very tight. Nice. Okay, they are tight. Zippy doodah. That was messy. So now this would just boop right apart. It does actually. Did not expect it to actually do that. Okay, let's get this bed plate out of the way. I'm sure the crank's not that heavy, right? It's not going to be heavy, right? Okay, it's actually not that bad. I expected it to be heavier than that. I mean, a Cummins crank is ridiculous. This is a little heavier than like an LS crank. Even though it's dirty, this crank looks pretty good. I'm actually surprised with the amount of parts that survived. I expected to get a lot less than this. The main bearings look pretty decent. Block looks okay. I mean, it's going to have to be machined because of the amount of rust, but it's still not that bad. Well, because I mentioned it, we're actually going to weigh an LS crank, and then we're going to weigh that 6.4 crank. So this is a 6-liter Gen 4 crank, and it's 1 pound off, so it's 52 pounds. Now let's go grab that 6.4 crank. All right, now I've got the 6.4 Powerstroke, which is actually pretty heavy. And that's 81 pounds. Okay, I take everything I said back. I'd say that's been running long enough. It's hot. Let's give it a little bath here. Let's hit it with the power washer. Okay, should be cooled down. Let's take a look. Oh, she's still dirty. Oh, it's hot. Oh, it's hot, 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 hot. So the timing cover cleaned up pretty good. Probably could use another, 30 minutes in the parts washer. Still some junk built up here on the oil pump. Again, I'm not taking this apart just because while there was metal run through this, I don't think there was enough to do any damage to the oil pump. The filter did a really good job here. But what's concerning is this. And I don't even know if I should be worried about this. Even if it's gouged up, does that matter? I mean, I don't know that it would. Hopefully this timing cover ends up being good, and it's a part I can sell. Lifter failure. We've seen that on the channel before, but I don't have enough experience with these Powerstrokes to tell you why the lifters fail on these engines. Sure, I can tell you why the GM ones do, but why do these fail? There's a lot of you that watch this channel that work on these things every single day. So what gives? Is it poor design? Is it a bad part? Is it cheap parts? Is it lack of maintenance or somebody doing something wrong? Just put it down in the comments. I want to know why these things have the same failure. I've seen or heard of this happening a lot of times. It seems like a pretty common thing. Lifters fail, wipe out the cam, sends metal through the engine. That's what happened here. Thankfully, I feel like I got pretty lucky. I think this was caught pretty early on because while there was metal in various parts of this engine, it didn't do a whole lot of damage outside of the parts that initially failed. And all of the parts on this engine that are good are actually worth something, which is really good for me because this was a really expensive core. So I think I'm going to do pretty good on this. And it's really tough for me to compare how it is to work on this engine versus some of the other diesel engines I've worked on because this was pretty well stripped down when I got it. The Duramax was probably one of the hardest engines I've torn down on the channel, and that was fully loaded. So it's not really fair to compare that to this, but it really wasn't as bad as I expected. However, for those that are wondering, I think I've got about 7.5 hours of film time on this teardown. And I don't even want to think about editing, but I'm going to have to. Anyway, if you'd like to buy parts off of this Powerstroke, almost all of them are good. If you need a good 6.4, I want your core back. I have a good running studded and deleted engine for sale. Just shoot us an email, or you can see what we have on importapart.com. Or if you'd like to buy parts off of this sadly wrecked 300ZX, it's a non-turbo manual car, or a WRX, just got that in too. I'm going to leave our email in the video description, and as always, I love all the comments, all the feedback, and even the criticism. I love it all, and I'll catch you on the next one.